Hello my friends, my name is Dragonheart, the Prince of Wales, and welcome to my channel. Today I am going to be showcasing my entire Tomb Kings of Khemri army. So without further ado, let us flip the camera around and begin with the first unit, which is Setra the Imperishable. Okay, so here we have Setra the Imperishable. Now I recently had my very first battle with this model. This is the old metal model, and it's a really cool and fun model to use. He has a fantastic large base here, which you can see I've done in a desert sand effect. I've got some deadland tufts on here. You'll notice with the eyes, I've done sort of red on the eyes of the actual steeds. To be honest, I'm not the best painters, as you can see, but it is something I'm looking to improve all the time. I've just gone gold all the way across, just because I had sort of time restrictions. I just didn't have the patience to do all the little blues and reds and things like that on the chariot. I've also missed a little bit of sand underneath, which I'm going to have to go back through and redo. And obviously got Setra himself. I'm quite happy with the eyes. I've done a pretty good job on his eyes. The model could look a little bit better, but it's certainly not the worst paint job in the world. I have got other units which I've done a far better job on. This is one which I'm going to go back into and add some more effects to it at a later date. I'm quite happy with how it's turned out though, and in my first battle with him, which I recently had, we actually won, and he had a fantastic battle, and he totally tied up the Green Knight that was in the Bretonnia army against him. So yeah, that's the first model, Setra the Imperishable. So next up we have here the Lich Priest on horseback. This isn't actually a Games Workshop model, this is a proxy which I got from Etsy. I've done a nice sort of green colour scheme with a purple hat, and then basically it's just sort of bone colours, a little bit of red to break the colours up, and then the same sort of thing really across that I did with sort of Setra, just deadland tufts, sort of sandy base. I much prefer using the Lich Priest on horseback rather than on foot. I feel like he's a pretty good unit to have, just running around the back line, just shooting Ruby Ring Ruin and just buffing up your troops where you can. So he's a pretty cool and fun unit. This is what my unit looks like. Let's see if I can try and get the focus. Oh, there we go. That's far better there. It's just gone out of focus again. There we go. There we go. So that's my Lich Priest. And here we have the Casket of Souls. This is a recent addition, and it's only had one battle. It was the battle I had recently, and it did pretty okay. Did okay in the battle. Could have done better, could have done worse. I'm quite happy with the paint job I've done. If I bring it in by here, I've basically used sort of bits of gold and silver. I've got a sort of light blue Caribbean Ocean colour scheme. I've gone with I think this is Tyrian Navy I've gone with on the actual box by here, the casket itself, and then you've got the Tomb Guardians, Deadland Tufts as well. The only thing with army painted paint, which is what I'm using for the sort of majority of my entire army, is it does leave these little white sort of patches on the actual coverage. You do have to go back over with another coat, which I probably will do at some stage, but this is the Casket of Souls. Next up we have some Ushabti, and I really like these units. They are quite good to use on the battlefield. They have very good range. Unfortunately, this one by here, you'll see that the arrow tip is actually broken off. Basically what happened was I was playing with it the other day, and I literally tried to pick him up from the arrow and it just broke off. So that's something I do have to do. I do have to glue that one back on, but I am quite happy with the colour scheme. I've just basically gone with sort of blacks, greys and golds, and then the red on the arrows and the actual bow itself really breaks it up. Again, I'm using deadland tufts to paint this, but I'm quite happy with the paint job. Again, it's the sort of thing where there are little spots from the armor painted paint which I could go back in to look to improve, but overall I am quite satisfied with this unit. Next up we have the Tomb Scorpion. So I actually had this 3D printed for me by a guy on Vinted, who was basically 3D printing a load of models. This is based on the proper Games Workshop mold, but this is a 3D printed version, although you wouldn't know it. I've gone with a nice red and black colour scheme on the tail and the tip of the tail, the stinger. And then I've gone with some bone colour then on the basically the mummy at the back. This is a very good model. I quite like the Tomb Scorpion. You can see I've got some metal magnets at the bottom there to keep it in. And then I've got my tufts on here, grass tufts, and then some sand effects as well. But quite happy with my Scorpion. Next up we have the Bone Giant, or the Necrolith Colossus as it's now known as. You'll notice straight away with this one that the arm right by here is really messed up. Basically the arm broke off in transportation. so I had to basically glue it back on, and I had some issues with the glue that I was using, and I had to go and basically take it off again and then reapply it. So I really need to tidy this up. I need to break away some of this glue and reapply with more paint and stuff basically to tidy it up. Other than that, the paint job's pretty good. Like on the face, you can see the armor looks pretty good. I've been very basic, just sort of bone color and then a nice sort of slaughter red on the actual armor. I was trying to go with like a Takeda kind of theme if you've ever played Shogun 2 and the Takeda clan. That was kind of what I was going for with this, like with sort of the big swords and stuff as well. But yeah, overall quite okay. Again, sort of glue issues. I had glue issues on the armor here as well. So it's a bit of an untidy looking model at the moment, which is kind of thematic, I guess, because they are undead creatures, I suppose. So not really a big deal. This has a different base. It's got like a rib cage lying down by here and like a sort of stonework on the actual base itself. So a little bit different to what I have so far. I've only used him a couple of times, and to be honest with you, he hasn't done that well for me in combat. So I'm rethinking whether to take him or not, or if I can find a place for him. But if you have this unit, please let me know what your thoughts are on this unit, and if you have used it in your battles so far. So you'll see by here, I have a bunch of spears and archers and a standard bearer as well for my skeleton horsemen. Long story short, I have the starter set for the Tomb King. So I have 8 of the spears and I have 8 of the bows, and these are both with full command, and they have musicians and standard bearers. But then I have 2 units by here, if I just grab them, which are done differently. And what I've done, I've basically proxied 2 sort of commanders or champions, and I've based them basically off the 300 Spartans. I wanted to go for like a Greek kind of theme, like a Spartan or a Macedonian theme. So this guy in my hand right here with the red cape, this is loosely based off of Alexander the Great. I want to go back in and actually change the skeleton bone to a darker shade, because Alexander the Great's horse was called Bucephalus, and apparently it was a darker horse which had like a white flick on like the fur of the forehead. So that's something I want to do. This guy is not called Alexander the Great. He's actually called Alexandros the Grim. I've given him his own name, which I think is quite cool. Again, you can sort of see the white spots coming on part of the model itself, like but there. And there's also a little red, which I need to tidy up on the leg, but there. Unfortunately, not since the first couple of battles I've had with the Tomb Kings have I really used horses that much. I've used a couple of horse archers here and there, but I just find that they're not very good in the game. They're very light cavalry. They don't do an awful lot on the charge or anything. They are very situational, I think, and in a very competitive Tomb Kings list, I just don't know whether you actually take them or not. But they are a pretty fun unit to have, and they do offer a bit of chaff here and there, which sometimes can be useful for like skirmishing and things such as that. So yep, that's my horse archers and horse spearmen. So next up, we have the Screaming Skull Catapult. And again, this is a purchase which I got from Etsy. It's just 3D printed. Quite happy with how it's turned out. My paint scheme is based off Decrepit Gaming's paint scheme. So if you're looking to and paint something like I've done here, definitely go and watch his video. I'm quite happy with how this has turned out. I've used a darker colour for the mummies on the towers by here of each side of the war machine. I've got the, is it a raven or an eagle at the top? I've just done that brown. For now, I need to go back in just detail on the beak and the head though, but overall quite satisfied. And I've got the crew as well. It has 3 crew members for the war machine, and that is the Screaming Skull Catapult. I just totally got lost with my words there, but there we go. So I'm not going to go through all of these because we'll be here all day, but here's just a couple of my skeleton archers. I have, I believe, 32 of these. I think it's whatever you get in the starter set. I think it's 32 you end up getting. So let's just show you one of these by here. Pretty happy with the detailing and the work. You know, they're all old bony things. You've got the bit of blue, bit of red to break the colours up. You just slosh over it with a bit of skeleton bone or whatever. Maybe do a little bit of dry brushing here and there, and then just chuck a couple of different colours on just to break the model up. Very easy model to sort of paint and batch paint in loads. I pretty much did all of these in like a day, and it was quite straightforward. Next up, we have some skeleton chariots, and these are quite an interesting unit. I used them recently as Tomb Guard chariots, but if you use them as standard light chariots, then you do get to have your warbows, so you can actually shoot with them. But if they are Tomb Guard chariots, you're not able to do that. I've gone with the black and gold colour scheme. That's loosely based off sort of Macedonia as well. If you've ever played the Total War games, Macedonia always have sort of black and gold colour schemes. So I've kind of gone with that as well. Quite happy with them. They are quite a useful unit. I always usually take at least 1 unit of these. I did try 2 units of 3 recently, and I also did do a block of 4 of them at one stage just to try that out. And I've had sort of mixed results. First couple of battles went okay. Next couple of battles didn't go as well. But I do feel like they have their place in the Tomb King list at some point or somewhere in that list. Always worth giving them like a war banner or something like that, just to give yourself an extra bit of combat resolve, because you might need that. And of course, if you can get like a rise off on them, you can sort of lose Chariot in combat, and then you might still be engaged in a fight, use a rise, and just get that Chariot back in just like that. And that's usually quite useful as well. So these are my Chariots. So there's 3 of them here. I do have another 3 of them in a different box as well, so I have 6 of them in total. So next up we have a big block of 24 Tomb Guard. I like these. I'm quite happy with the paint job of these. I've gone with the Roman theme, so I've equipped them all with swords, although I tend to use them with halberds when I'm playing. We've got our musician here, which looks pretty cool. We've got our standard bearer by here as well, and then at the front with the gold death mask on, we have our champion. What I did basically, I bought myself the Tomb King's Tomb Guard box, which you get 20 of these, and then what I've done, you'll see I've got an extra 4. So for example, there's this guy back here with quite a unique pose. I have this guy at the back who also has a unique pose. I think it is, I can't remember where the other 2 are off the top of my head, but there's another 2 in there. But basically what I've done, if you buy the Necro Sphinx box, you get 4 Tomb Guard units, which you use for your Khemrian War Sphinx if you build a Khemrian War Sphinx. Now, I don't have a Khemrian War Sphinx, so I had 4 extra models, which I basically built up, gave them these kind of unique poses, and I've added them to my numbers, swelled my numbers to go from 20 to 24. They are quite an interesting unit to use. Infantry in the old world isn't that strong at the moment. I do think the game possibly needs an update of some sort, because I find that I have to put a lot of points, like certain banners or things like that, into this block to make them, you know, useful in combat. There are certain units you can go against and do really well, but I find 2/3 of the time I'm losing combat quite a lot. So I don't know whether that's just a me thing and against the type of units I'm against, or whether that's just infantry in its current state in the old world at the moment. But I'm quite happy with these. They look quite cool on the battlefield, especially in a big block like this. And aesthetically, they are very, very pleasing to me. And again, it's the sort of thing where I can go back in and I can just do a bit more detail at some point to like a bit more on the shields, get some more gold on the shields, maybe do a bit of wear and tear on the shields, that sort of thing. But my aim is to just get as many colours on and get them built, primed and painted up as quickly as I can to an acceptable level for when I'm fighting. I'm not trying to be the perfect painter here. I'm just trying to get things done as quickly as I can onto the table. And then once everything is built up and I'm happy with the army, I'll then go back in and do some touch-ups and things such as that. Next up, we have the Necro Sphinx, and I will go on record and say I think this is my favourite unit in the entire army roster. It's 195 points. If you add the extra 5 points, you get the stinger on the tail as well, which is really useful. The colour scheme is quite a traditional colour scheme. I've gone with I basically primed it in a dark blue colour from, I think it's Forge. Is it something Forge? I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. I'm quite new to hobbying, so bear with me. I've got sort of darker gold colours on like the rib cage and stuff by here. Then more sort of out there kind of traditional gold. I've gone with a bit of a sort of darker sort of colour again underneath the wings. And then you also got the face. I've gone with the skull face there. It stands out really nicely on the battlefield. And obviously got the little bit of I've gone with a metallic green here on the tail. It's a very, very nice unit. It's a very, very good luxury unit, I would call it. It can fly. It has Indomitable. It causes terror. It has the poison sting. I believe it has cleaving blow off the top of my head. So it has quite a lot of good things going for it. It is a large target and it has swift stride. It can cover a lot of ground as well. So it is a very, very useful, strong unit and I have clinched combat on quite a few occasions with this unit. I really enjoy the Necro Sphinx. There's a lot of people out there that I've read on forums that say don't go for this, go for something else, but in my personal opinion, I enjoy using this, and I certainly would recommend any new player to play in Tomb Kings definitely pick up one of these models. Not only do they look cool, but they will serve you well in combat. So next up we have a big box of goodies by here, which you'll see. There's quite a lot of different things to go through, so I'll make this quite quick. We'll start off by this guy by here. If I can just get my camera to focus on him for a moment. There you go. This is Prince of Hoppus. He looks very, very scary. Very much a bone white face. Looks like sort of Joker makeup almost. Golden sort of crown. Loads and loads of scarabs going up and down the body. I've just used lots of contrast paints and things. I could do a bit of a touch up on the sides as well at some point. As you can see, there's quite a bit of white showing through. Again, he's a very, very situational model. He's basically an assassin. You can fly. He has a breath attack, which is quite unique. And you can use ambush with him, so he comes onto the table later on, and you go after a specific target, and you try to kill them. But his stats aren't the best, and like I say, he's very situational. He doesn't have an awful lot of wounds, so he'd be taken out quite easily as well. So I've tried him in like 2 battles, and I was a bit kind of like turned off by him, so I'm not going to recommend him, but maybe you can find a use for him in your list. This is my Prince of Hoppus. We then have a Tomb King by here, or Tomb Prince. This is basically the one from the Necro Sphinx box, which I've never actually used this one on the tabletop because I use different models. But I painted it up very quickly with just like a base coat and stuff. Obviously, there's quite a lot of work that can still go into this one to add some detailing on the face, maybe a bit of red for like the mouth, maybe some yellow or red for like the eyes, and some stuff on like the feet and the arms. But this is this model by here. I then have this Lich Priest model by here. I actually messed the hand up, so I've ended up cutting off a hand from another model and gluing it on, because this model is supposed to shoot like eagles or like some sort of beam or something, and it comes out of the arm like that. But I accidentally destroyed that. So I basically cut this out instead. I have some blue tack on the bottom of this model to sit on the dragon, because I haven't got anything glued onto the dragon. But yeah, I've used this a couple of times when I first started playing, but I don't like using a Lich Priest on a dragon. As I mentioned earlier in the video, I prefer my Lich Priest on horseback, but this is the model I have in case I ever do decide to go back and use him in that manner. And next up, possibly the best painted model we have here. I'm quite proud of this. This is my Tomb King / Tomb Prince. The color scheme looks a lot better. The face details look pretty good. The red looks pretty decent. The gold looks nice. It's quite a nice looking model. Shines quite well. It looks quite nice. The cape looks lovely with it. The shading looks good. The wood effect looks good. This is probably the model that I'm most pleased of. The funny thing is I don't tend to use it much, because I tend to use the Tomb King on dragon when I do use a Tomb King. But if I do want to put my king on foot, this is the model I always use. And he looks pretty decent, and I'm quite happy with him. And then the rest of the stuff in this box, which you'll see, it's just loads and loads of skeleton spears, skeleton archers. Like I said earlier, this is basically all the stuff from the Tomb Kings starter set. I'm not going to go into all of them individually, otherwise we will be here all day. But this is the rest of them by here then. Next up, we have the Necropolis Knights, or the Necro Serpents. They have full command. So we have this snake by here, which is my standard bearer. Then we have this one on this side, which is the musician. And then finally, we have the champion himself. My wife actually helped me paint these up. We've gone with a Caribbean blue effect over the top of the scales pattern here. Then with a red sort of bony effect underneath. Then with a bit of gold, more red. And then we've gone with a metallic green, which is what we used for the Necro Sphinx tail. We've gone with the tails of all of the snakes with these. And then all of the helms of the infantrymen on top of these, they all have green helms, which I think is quite cool. I just thought, well, if the snakes are going to be poisonous, then we'll sort of recognize that with like a metallic green. That could be like our kind of thing for what poison does in this army. And again, we've got it here. Quite happy with the paint job on these, quite happy with the use of colors. I could definitely go back in and try and tidy up some of the rougher edges of this, but I'm quite happy. And they are a very good unit to use. I'm quite happy with them on the battlefield. They certainly have their uses. They got pretty good movement. Their attacks are pretty good. They do poison as well, so get these, maybe chuck a banner on it or something, and they will no doubt do very well for you. And also, just for the sake of completion, in the box that they were in are the rest of my chariots, which you can just about make out in this box by here. I'm not going to show you them again because you've already seen 3 chariots, but these are the other chariots. We're almost there. The last but one is my second Tomb Scorpion. This has a funny story. This is an old metal model. It's a very, very poor paint job. It's very, very blotchy. You see a bit of glue coming through on the feet. This is the first time I ever used green stuff. This was actually an eBay restoration of sorts. So somebody was selling this on eBay. I paid not that much for it, to be honest with you. And it came in a few different bits. A lot of the legs were missing from the body. I had to go in, I had to scrub all of the old paintwork off. I had to rebuild the tail completely, hence why you can see it's a little bit bulgy in certain places. And then I had to basically use green stuff for the first time to try and repair the legs. Honestly, I'll say this now, from what it looks like now, this looks like Michelangelo compared to what it was. So I'm quite happy that it's seen the table and it's had some work. Obviously I go back in, clear up the glue on the base and stuff, and maybe try and paint over this. You'll notice from the Prince of Popus model, which is also metal, that I showed you earlier on, the paint job wasn't the best on that. I'm actually struggling painting metal models. That's the one thing that I have discovered from my sort of painting ability. I need to go in and sort of practice that, because that is something which I could definitely do with more work on. But this is my second Scorpion, so I can take 2 Scorpions if I so wish to. And finally, we have the Creme de la Creme, my favorite model in the entire roster. This is the Bone Dragon, which was from the starter set. You'll notice with my Bone Dragon, first of all, that the base is quite chunky, and I've got some magnets underneath to help with transportation. And the reason why the base is chunky is I used some MDF to raise the level of the base, because the tail just kept breaking all the time. It kept banging against the bottom of the containers it's been in, or when I've been like transporting it and stuff. You'll also notice as well, if I draw your attention to the right wing by here, you'll notice that the wingtips by here, the claws, that middle one is different. That's because it broke off. I literally don't know where it went. I was building this and it just disappeared, and I just could not find it at all. So I ended up converting a spear, painting it the same sort of colour and putting it on. I was quite happy with the work of that. You'll also notice the tail by here. It's a little bit blocky, I guess. The tail kept breaking at this point, so I had to go in, repair it, and then paint white over it, then go back in with like a bone colour sort of shade and stuff, and try to make it look, you know, dragony. It looks okay, it doesn't look too bad on the table. A lot of the same sort of colours being used and used and used constantly. The head looks a lot better, as you can see. Certainly with the crown looks quite good. We've got then the Lord. So I built the Howdah using the Lich Priest, because this was my first ever like big build, and I wasn't really sure about the rules of Old World and stuff, so I ended up building the Lich Priest version rather than the other version. And I just could not be bothered to go back in and change it, because it's just a lot of work, which I wasn't prepared to do. I wanted to play more than paint. So this is a Tomb King this is a Tomb King, and I bought him from Etsy, and he's got his own red saddle by here with a little bit of blue tack that holds him on. Basically, I've built him up as my king. I can swap him out for the Lich Priest, which I showed you earlier, without changing the Howdah. So that's why I've done it like that. The wings as well, by here, if you notice, they both are stuck to the base. They're both glued, like this right side is glued to the rock. This left one is glued down just by here to the base. And also I've sort of attached it, or tried to attach it to the tail. It's actually not attached, but I did attach to the tail just to try and stick it all in. This left wing used to be right out, like up by here, and just kept catching everything. It was awful to use on the table. So I basically cut the wing off completely at the bone by here. I cut it off completely. Did the same thing as the other one, filed it down a bit, glued it back on, painted over it with white, painted over it with a bone colour, and then reapplied it. It is my favourite model because it is one of the best models in the Tomb King roster. You put a Tomb King on the Bone Dragon, you give it the Armour of Ages. It is so useful as an item. You can then get, you know, maybe some great weapon or something like that. Maybe use another good weapon choice to use, like a flail. I think it's the Flail of Radiance or something. I used that, and that was pretty good as well. You get to strike first, I believe, with that as well. So striking first, getting your stomp attacks, the fact you cause fear, the fact you fly, the fact that you have, I can't remember off the top of my head, is it like 9 or 10 wounds, something like that, something ridiculous. It is a formidable beast. It will make all of Bretonnia just scurry in their little posh Frenchy boots. And like I said, this unit is such a good, strong unit in the old world. I wholeheartedly recommend this. The issue you will have when you're building a list is, do you go with Setra or do you go with this? So I used Setra for the first time in my last battle, and I was quite impressed with him. He took out the Green Knight, and he has a lot of very good special rules. There's not much between them in points, so if you put the Armour of Ages and the Flail of Radiance on your Tomb King, I think this as a whole is only like 10 points. It's either 10 points less or 10 points more than Setra himself. So you've got a choice between the two. I suppose you could put a Lich Priest on this and run Setra and then Lich Priest on a Bone Dragon, but then your command is going to be taking up the best part of 1,000 points. You might not have much left then for the rest of your army, and it might weaken the rest of your army. But it depends if you want to go with that sort of build, or if you're able to go with that sort of build. That is something you could look to do as well. But anyway, folks, there you have it. That is my entire Tomb Kings of Khemri Warhammer the Old World army. I've been Dragonheart, the Prince of Wales. Until next time, goodbye. Bye.